Hello YouTube, this is Volcano Lion coming to you pre-record from his camper. We are just as much a product of our environment as our environment is a product of us. The credence of Chaldean tribalism is the principal example by which the pylon of Earth is best understood. Out of the four pylons, Earth is the one that most relates to the mechanical nature of our society, the structures and mechanisms by which we incentivize and condemn the populace with. It's the means by which we function in our world, the tangibles that put the theoretics to the test. Its very nature, just as it manifests in reality, is that of sustainable developments, rock-hard durability, and foundational stability. That the pylon represents the material realm of depressive rationality and the emotional realm of the green emotions further clarifies what it is that makes Earth what it is and why it functions in the way that it does. Depressive rationality relates to matters of a cynical, pragmatic nature, where empirical evidence, expressionless reactions, and carefully developed proactions are necessary to maintain integrity and functionality. Think managerial type professions or professions that have a guardianship type air to it, or stewardships like gardening. Either this or professions that adhere to numerical equalizations like chemistry or accounting. The green emotions are the compulsory based influences that propel and guide a person in the matters of depressive rationality, emotions like fear, shame, tiredness, paranoia, guilt, stress, calm, and duty. These emotions promote rationals of conservation and reinforcement to protect and endure when and where the compulsions control the individual. It's easy to see how this can become fanaticism, the vice of curiosity. But it's not necessarily so, as I will go into explaining the difference throughout the pylon's trident. Represented by the Earth zodiac signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, and their ruling lords, Venus, Mercury, and Saturn. Body, represented by the sphere of Taurus, ruled by the Lord Venus, forms the school of predation with the natural law. Elegance begets continuance. This concept comes from the opposition of Mars in its law of nature. Might makes right. The idea being that to earn what you have and to enforce what you have is through might, but to maintain what you have and to cultivate it requires elegance. Elegance represents this idea of creating and living within a beautiful environment, beauty being the characteristics of a healthy Venus and, by proxy, a healthy society. Calm, relaxed, well-mannered, gracious, seductive, and trustworthy. To be of a practical nature, one has to conduct themselves as a practical person, not necessarily being one of frugality and cheapness, but of being a beautiful representation of who you are as a person, while respecting the social cohesiveness of the environment by which you find yourself within. Think dressing in an embroidered leather jacket that is well fitting on your character, shapely and utilitarian, but with a sleek coating and artwork instilled into it that makes it more along the lines of a formal suit to a banquet than a biker rally to which you frequent often. The school of predation teaches these Venetian characteristics that take their inspiration from prey animals, such as environmental sustainability and cohabitation, politeness, social awareness, having manners and understanding mannerisms, and social cohesion and uniformity, teamwork, and accepted retaliation tactics. It also puts emphasis on investment protections and stewardship, promoting ideas such as cyclical regrowth and sustainable grazing. Think gardening or recycling, or ecological conservation, job preservation, environmental protection, and retaliation. These concepts are to promote durability and consistency within the individual and society by proxy, promoting an ecological sustainability that allows for the other spheres to develop their abilities of traditional adaptability, proactive development, and prudent growth. Mind, represented by the sphere of Virgo, ruled by the Lord Mercury, forms the school of traditional rationality, and is representative of the natural law. You are what you know. The idea is an honest one, that a person is limited only by what they understand of themselves and the environment around them. The traditional values that they grew up with and the anti-traditional values that they are against forms the bedrock of what they understand themselves to be, and by proxy, how they end up shaping the environment around them to reflect and suit this inner structuring. The environment, however, is what forms the foundation of this worldview, and so, just as it gradually changes and molds, does too the individual have to change and mold to continue surviving in it, without throwing away the traditional values by which both person and environment form itself from. Though the person can force the environment to human form to their preferred desirability, this is not so much an adaptation as it is a mutation of the traditional structure, turning it into something completely different rather than something that is adjacent to what was. The focus to prevent mutation and promote adaptation is the goal of a practical person who follows the school of traditional rationality, and is also what clarifies why fanaticism is not a virtue but a vice, being a concept that represents either extremes of tradition or progression. Within the school, the leading idea is to understand the mechanics of the self and the environment, and to develop and maintain tools and methodologies that allow for optimization with the mechanical self and the environment, and to promote stabilization. Task mastering, administrating, mechanical knowledge, these are the sum of the concepts and signs that shows that a person has the practical skills to maintain and change as needed. Reactive/mutation stabilization is this idea in total, only being fully realized when a person has systematically explored their mechanical ecosystem and maintains their connection to it, thus ensuring that they do not leave themselves or the environment open to adverse adaptations. See, closing of a local small town factory causes increased crime, for example. This line of thinking and adaptability requires the ability to submit, or as I call it, capitulate to the machine. This is simply the idea that it is what it is, and instead of becoming a frothing zealot against the inevitable change, understand that change is the nature of the machine itself, and so you have to be able to change with it while maintaining your traditions. Think the factory is closed, all there is are store clerk jobs. I love working with my hands, and people make me anxious. It's what I have to do, but maybe I can work towards working in the back later down the line, or at least work night shifts. Traditional rationality is thus all about maintaining the self and, by proxy, maintaining the ecological stability of the self within their ecosystem, always finding another niche to fill into, and thus maintaining the ecosystem in and of itself. The spirit, represented by the sphere of Capricorn, ruled by Lord Saturn, forms the school of architectured foundations and is represented by the natural law to stand when you can and to sit when you must. That constitutes prudence. Saturn's nature is that of activation and hibernation, a state of duty and sloth. That for the individual to be stable, that is healthy, happy, and endurable, they must take action when they must and rest when they can. Just like our bones and muscles, which need compression and stress to remain strong and capable, so too must they rest to recoup, rebuild, and adapt beyond their limits. Much of this adaptation comes from practice, analyzation, and honing of one's senses in their practical meditations to fully understand what is necessary and what is not. Frugality, in this case, is not simply greedy miserliness, as many would want to believe it to be, but a systematic analyzation of each step made, each investment pondered over, so as to build on what was previously possible before, and therefore make the now impossible the future possible. This is not so much a meditation as it is a mastery of one's meditation. To understand it so thoroughly, and to have tested it so arduously, as to apply methods that would make the impossible possible, not by irrational forces to enact misguided change, but to apply rational, compartmentalized thought to proactively create a structured form, to create an intentional future rather than running into the future based on reactionary faith. To be qualitative rather than quantitative, i.e., to enact guided, precision-based calculation that shapes and hones to whittle the future rather than to shotgun it and hope for the best is the guiding principle. In this intentionality, in this thoughtful stepping, is one not so much expected to prevent the future, but to embrace it on their terms. In this, above all else, is a person not so much a victim of fate, but rather an active participant in it, promoting their way of life as becoming life-affirming by proxy of engaging in life, rather than by hiding from it and turning what was a cage of tyranny into a construct for freedom. Overall, the pylon of Earth and practicality is one not of unfettered reactionary progress, but of thoughtful, considerate adaptation towards one's personal life, that of society at large, and that of the future. That to move forward, one must look back and see where and why they are even here to begin with, to remember the foundations of their society, their people, and themselves, and to take that and adapt it towards the future, not to leave it behind or stay behind with it in vain faith. What practicality means most above all else is a simple question. Does this work anymore? If it does, at what cost does it take to make it work? Is it something that lives, or is it something that should be allowed to rest? A serious question to ask in an environment where the old refuse to sit down and the young shudder to stand up. Thank you, dear listener. If you like the video of my writing, I suggest checking out my library on Facebook through Google Cloud. My book, Warren, it's a set of stories placed in the world of Warren and heavily influenced by many different ideas and beliefs that I hold in both high regard and close to my heart. Again, thank you for your time, and I look forward to lecturing you again in the next video. Bye.